Hello everyone and welcome again to the Prado Museum in Madrid, Spain. We're here continuing our weekly sessions in English, and this is a program that is made possible with the help of the members of the American Friends of the Prado Museum. You can go to our website to find out more about who the American Friends of the Prado Museum are and the projects that we work on. And if you prefer to speak Spanish, you can also check out our sister organization, the Fundación de Amigos del Museo del Prado. Today we'll be talking about a self-portrait, the self-portrait of Titian. And self-portraits are a really special type of painting that you can find in a museum, because self-portraits can tell us about a whole world of different ideas, of different information about an artist's social aspirations, about his artistic ambitions, about maybe an artistic declaration of intention. The painting style alone can speak volumes, just like the decision of what clothes to wear, or what activity the artist is going to be depicted doing, or where he's going to paint himself. All of these choices are carefully considered and calculated to devise an image that ultimately tells us about how the artist sees himself, and really about how he wants to project the image of himself in society. Now, as you know, Titian is one of the great Venetian artists from the 16th century, of whom we have an amazing collection here at the Prado. And this self-portrait comes from a later period in his life. This is from around 1562. This is the latest self-portrait of Titian that exists today. And in this late period, Titian's work is marked by his free handling of the brushstroke. We can think maybe of some other paintings from this time, like the Nymph and the Shepherd, or the Flaying of Marsyas. And in these paintings, Titian's pictorial language is really expressed in its most extreme version of itself, with really varying responses from contemporaries. And in those paintings, we see some of his sketchy style, some of his patchy style, and we can get a sense of that style here, that unfinished appearance that he leaves in some of his paintings. Now, Giorgio Vasari, who wrote the lives of the artists in the 16th century, which is a foundational work for the study of art history, he mentioned having seen a self-portrait of Titian in his workshop that he said was very natural and very beautiful. And it could be this canvas that we're looking at here. This canvas stayed with the family of Titian in that collection until Titian died. And then in the 17th century, it went into the collection of Peter Paul Rubens, this Flemish painter, this powerhouse, Peter Paul Rubens, who was a great admirer of Titian. And from there, it was purchased by the Spanish king, Philip IV. So it entered the Spanish royal collections, which is how we have it here at the Prado Museum today. And Titian's self-portrait is not only preserved on canvas, his portrait is not only preserved on canvas, but also on metals. In the Renaissance, portraits on metals, on coins, in sculpture and relief revived this tradition from antiquity of portraits of elite and of Roman emperors, again on coins, and we can see examples of this here, and in relief, that conjure these ideas of monumentality, of permanence, and of commemoration. So the sculptor Leone made a medal for Titian with his portrait in 1537, and on that inscription we do have, just like we have here, we have a portrait of Titian in profile, and around the borders of that medal is an inscription that says Pintor et equus, meaning painter and knight. And so Titian was telling us about his social position. It was made just a few years after Titian had been ennobled by Charles V. Charles V was the Holy Roman Emperor, and he was one of Titian's most important patrons. His portrait also appears in woodcuts, and so it seems like Titian really understood the value of his image appearing in a variety of media. But this is one of only the two self-portraits that exist in painting today. One is in Berlin, dated to around 1546-47, and this painting, like we said, from around 1562. And the most striking thing about this painting, about this self-portrait, really is its typology, really is Titian's decision to paint himself in profile. If you think about painting yourself, making a self-portrait, obviously the easiest way to do this is to look at yourself in a mirror and paint yourself looking at that mirror. And he's chosen to do this in profile, which would have been a technical challenge. And the way that he would do this is to use multiple mirrors to be able to see the side of his face. Furthermore, Titian also reserved this type of profile painting really for deceased sitters. If he was going to paint somebody, a portrait of someone who had passed away, then he would paint them in profile. So this is a little bit different. And it's also different from other self-portraits of artists at the time. There's a self-portrait, for instance, of Tintoretto, and Tintoretto is looking directly at the viewer, engaging the spectator with this arresting gaze, this psychologically deep portrait. Giorgione made another self-portrait of himself in sort of an allegorical fashion, where he has taken on the guise of the biblical David and he's holding the head of Goliath in his hand. So Giorgione has taken the allegorical path. And Titian here is doing something a little bit different, because he's really not looking at, he's not engaging the audience at all. He's decided that he's going to be looking away, and we're not sure exactly what he's looking at. We can't see what he is seeing, but we can imagine it, right? He's looking outside of the picture frame, and maybe he's seeing a subject, maybe he's seeing something that he's going to work on, maybe he's seeing something that he's going to paint. And it gives him this look that is deeply introspective, very thoughtful, and very intellectual. And at the same time, he's made sure that he also looks very courtly. So he's looking very intellectual, very introspective, but also very courtly. He's dressed elegantly in this black color, and we can see these little flecks of light that are showing us this detail of the chains that he's wearing around his neck, and the chains are the signs of his ennoblement of the Order of the Golden Spur, which is the title that was given to him by Charles V. So really, just like the medal by Leone, Titian is showing us on canvas about his status, both as a painter but also as a knight, also about his social status. And so we have to think about the social status of painters, of artists in the 15th and the 16th centuries and the Renaissance, because a social category really was determined by one's birth and one's occupation. And the importance of one's occupation was really determined by how closely related or how far away it was from manual labor, from work that you would do with your hands. The kinds of activities, the kind of professional activities that you would do with your mind, intellectual activities, were part of the liberal arts. And other kinds of professions that you had to work with your hands were mechanical activities, mechanical exercises. And visual arts formed part of these mechanical activities, the mechanical arts. And one of the great aspirations of the artists in the Renaissance was to demonstrate that painting, even though it was done with hands, was in fact a liberal art, that it was not a mechanical activity, that it was essentially an intellectual exercise. And because of this, that meant that painters were deserving of a certain social recognition, or able to achieve a certain social recognition. And so this could be why Titian had put so much importance on his social status in his self-portrait, reasserting his position as an artist, as one who participates in these liberal arts. It also might be why Titian has actually made a rather subtle reference to his profession, to his being a painter in this portrait. If we notice, he's really kind of relegated his professional activity to this corner down at the bottom, where he's holding this object in his hand, where he's holding his paintbrush. And there's actually even some debate about the object that he's holding, because this seems a bit short to be a paintbrush, or at least he's holding it very near the tip, which wouldn't have been the typical way to hold a paintbrush. It would have been held much, much further back. This may be because of his age, because of his physical condition. But some authors have also suggested that this might not be a paintbrush, but it might be a pen. Not because Titian would be writing, but because he might be showing his capacity, his dominion of the principle of disegno. And disegno is this artistic principle that focuses on contours and lines in art. And Venetian painters, and Titian, perhaps more than anyone, is known for his colorist use of paint, his colorist approach to painting, of painting in these blotches that build up forms with color, that end up leaving their forms with less defined contours, with less defined edges, a little bit sketchier. And mentioning again one more time Vasari's lives of the artist, we also have to know that in the lives of the artist, Vasari quoted Michelangelo as having said that Titian was a great painter, but he would have been even better if he had a better control, if he had a better dominion of his capacity of disegno. And this was a widely circulated work among the intellectual elite that Titian was moving around in. And so maybe there's a chance that Titian's also responding to this critique from Michelangelo. So self-portraits are a fascinating type of painting that you can find in any museum, and certainly here at the Prado. And absolutely the self-portrait of Titian, we can learn so much more about the painter, but also about the time and the culture in which he lived. And with this self-portrait, we can see Titian's social ambition. We can learn about the social position of artist, understand his importance of the ideas of monumentality, of permanence here, and on his noble status. I think that Titian was thinking of posterity when he painted this self-portrait, and hoping that in future generations we would be looking at this painting, making these associations and trying to understand him more deeply as an artist. So we'll conclude for today. Thank you for joining me, and we'll see you again next Wednesday.